Hello, my name is Petrina Sharp and I am your host for today's segment of Our Ventura. Today in the studio with me I have Rob Hess, who is co-owner of Jai Rhythm Yoga, and we were going to be talking about yoga. Welcome, Rob.
Hi, Petrina.
Hi.
Hi.
So how are you today?
I'm doing great. It's gorgeous out here in Ventura, so as most days are.
Yes, we are very lucky.
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you, what are a couple of different ways to describe what yoga actually is?
So yoga, by sort of the definition, is union. And it is the union of breath and movement, and that is more of the physical part of the yoga practice. As you continue sort of the physical journey, and as you continue your yoga practice, or in the yoga they call it a sadhana. It's something that you do ritually. You do it over and over. As you continue on the practice, you find that the union is still the breath and the movement, but it moves more deeper into that connection of spirit and the union of flow of energy. And so really it is the all-encompassing of the union of life.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, why do you practice yoga?
I mean, I started yoga, and this was one of those things where, I'm not a gym person. I was going to the gym, something physical, something to just stay healthy, and I never really liked the gym. And so I took a yoga class, and I found it had a great physical practice. I got a great sweat, a great workout. But then after now over 10 years or more, almost 20 years now practicing yoga, there becomes a shift in the body and a shift in sort of how you view things. And you may call it growing older, getting up, you're just kind of like, you get wiser. I felt a great connection to just kind of like how the practice made me feel, how I moved throughout my day, how I felt more open and receptive to people, able to kind of smile at a stranger instead of being like on my little BlackBerry or your little smart device, and you just move through your day in a more purposeful meditation. So that's kind of how it all evolved.
Nice. So then how would that also translate to major benefits for anybody to practice out on a regular basis?
I mean, the practice itself is very physical. So when you come into the yoga practice, you're going to benefit by getting a good workout. You get your heart rate up. Everyone knows, and any doctor will tell you to get the heart rate going. All the physical activity. You're moving through a lot of movement. There's breath, there's movement. And so you're getting the physical part. You may break a little sweat. I know in my class you'll break a big sweat, but you start to get that heart rate going. The blood flows. The more circulation, the more healthier you are. The whole body is working together. And so for most people, it is that start of the physical practice. It is that, you're opening up your joints. You're opening up the muscles. You're elongating the muscles. You're getting the blood flowing, and that just really helps the body to stay healthy. And by making the body healthy, the mind tends to be more healthy. You find that inside the yoga practice, you're able to sort of settle, you're able to quiet. But even in those physical moments, you find those moments where there's softness, that clarity. And so the benefits not only are physical, but are mental. And for some people, I find it even somewhat spiritual, because the mind becomes clear. And I know, for most of us, our to-do list keeps going on through our head, and there's so many times we can't quiet that to-do list down, where the practice of yoga, I tried running for a while, and sometimes you run and you hit that wall and then everything's clear. You're like, I don't hear that to-do list anymore. Or cycling, I love to cycle too. Right. And so it's that place where you find where you can just be in the flow, and everything just happens. You don't have to worry about where you are, what time it is, what day it is, where you're supposed to be, where are the kids. You're just in the flow of life.
In that moment.
Yep, in
just
the moment.
Be there and enjoy.
Be present. That's
right.
really the whole journey of the practice, is being fully present. Mm-hmm. So that when you come into contact with people, or you come into your everyday life, that you're not just thinking about, oh, what time is it? What do I have to do next? That you're present with someone, that you're
Right.
truly engaged. Yeah.
Yes, I firmly believe in that. So do you actually have to be flexible coming into doing yoga?
No. And that's what everyone always says when they come in. They're always like, well, I'm not flexible, so I can't practice yoga. And that's kind of, I don't speak French, and I would like to learn French, but it's not going to happen if I don't pick up a book or take a class.
Yeah.
And so people, want to be flexible, but they're like, well, I'm not flexible, so I can't take yoga. Well, you have to start at step one. We all started, as infants crawling.
Right.
And from there, we learned to walk. And even then, when we started to walk, we fell down. We got back up. We started to walk. You do that when you ride a bike, First time, you scrape your knees, you scrape your toes, but it doesn't stop you. You get back on, and that's kind of the process. And a lot of people, well, I'm not flexible. Well, there's a lot of things I can't do, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to try it. So, might as well try it. And it speaks to some people, and some people it doesn't. My teacher often says, is sort of, find something you do that makes you happy.
Right.
And if it makes you happy, keep doing it. Because if you're just mad doing it over and over again, then your life's too short. You might as well find the joy in what you do and how you do it. So.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Although I find that when I do yoga, I'm still in the stage where it's always painful because I am still stretching and still, it seems like, yes, one step forward, and then the next time I come back, it's taken a step back. So it does take a while to build up that flexibility.
It does take a while. And it's not only, but that's the whole learning process, and that's the whole part of life. Sometimes in our daily life, we move forward, and then all of a sudden we feel like a door shuts, and we're like, oh, I have to go back again. And you keep moving through that, and that's part of the practice. That's why it's called a practice, not just you're going to work out, is because, you feel one day, yeah, this is great, and the next day you come and you're like, ooh, I feel tighter. And, that's due to our everyday life. Some days, are less stressful. And so you feel like you're at ease, the mind's quiet. On other days, the dog, parents, the kids, whatever, school things.
Right.
And so the mind can't quiet. And so you feel tighter and tense. And so, the whole journey is understanding that. And that's a normal flow. Some days the ocean has big waves, and
Right.
some days the waves are small. That's a normal flow.
Right.
It's like we can't control that.
Right.
And so oftentimes we come to our practice thinking, I have to do this or I have to control that. And it's when you let go and be like, okay, this is just what is. It's a rough day today, or my hips are feeling tighter. Okay.
Yeah.
So, next week they won't be. You never know. It's the whole journey of life. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah.
That all makes sense. So what are some of the common misconceptions about yoga?
I think people sometimes think it's a cult, or we're all sitting back there with our foot wrapped around our head, or we're all just laying in shavasana or sitting, meditating, chanting, and those are some of the things, and that's a whole process of yoga. There's many different forms, many different styles, many different things about the whole journey of yoga. Mm-hmm. And so people think, I know my family thinks that I sit there and levitate with my foot wrapped around my head, and it's like, no, that's not what I do. But some people think that we're doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and if you don't know about it, that's what's going to happen. It's kind of like anything out there until you try it. Until you try sushi or Thai food or something, you don't know what it tastes like, and then you experience it. You're like, oh, okay, this is great.
It is great. I started doing yoga, I don't know, several years ago, and then I kind of let it fade away. And now that I'm a little bit older, I'm finding that it's definitely harder, but I see where I actually need it more because
Right.
the body is not what it used to be.
and that's the whole process of yoga. Sometimes we get in, we're young, we're like energized, and sometimes we have to step back. Life life happens,
Yeah.
and we can't always control every moment, everything, and so you take a step back. But then when you step back into it, you feel, I know the older I get that I practice, the more I'm just like, oh, it's a total different practice than it was back when I was 20. Now that I'm in my 40s, it's kind of like I feel different about it. I understand a great deal more about it, that it's not always doing a handstand. It's not popping up and wrapping my foot around my head and doing these crazy things. They're beautiful and I love them, but it becomes more of really being in that flow and in the process, and just letting really the current of life and just being able to let go. And so, and it does, the benefits is when you get older, I mean, your joints are healthier, you have better blood circulation, your heart is working, I mean, even doing that's going to bring your cholesterol levels down, all those things that as we get older, we find that oh no, you go to the doctor or check up, and after a while you're like, oh, things are good, and you're like, yes.
Yeah, I'm going for that, yes.
Good.
So, what are some good ways to get started in yoga if you haven't done it before?
A good way is taking any beginner class or foundation class. It's just getting started. Don't go to the hardest level class just because you think you're physically active and you run a marathon and so you can do it. Is start in a beginner class. Really start and get the foundation. It's like learning the ABCs. You have to start with the foundation. You got to learn that. And even though you feel strong and physically active, it's if you don't know the proper technique, you could injure yourself or hurt yourself, and you don't want to injure yourself. None of us, want to have bad shoulders and a bad back and injured wrist. But so many times people, I've had come into sort of a class that they're in sort of, a higher level class, and it's their first yoga class. And they're looking around and don't know what's going on, when really you need to start at the foundation. And I know it's hard because we all often just do it because there's a schedule. And it's like, oh, this just fits in my schedule, so what, I'll just take it. But that's the way people sometimes can get hurt. And so, in my class, I want people to really stay safe and honor who they are and where they're at. And, listen to your body. The best teacher that we ever have is the one inside.
Right.
As we often practice, or even when you're running out doing something and you feel that little twitch and you're like, oh, and right away you shouldn't be doing this, but you keep going. Right. Sometimes when I'm cycling, I'm in that moment and it's just kind of like, oh, I got to push and make that mile, and then it's like, wait, stop. I'm supposed to listen to that. There is too much going on right now. And same thing in yoga, because it is a physical practice, so you want to slow down and listen within, and that'll keep you safe.
Wow. That is a lot to take in, but that has been very clarifying. Unfortunately, we're just about out of time.
Oh.
So is there anything that you would like to say as a closing to anything you want to add to that?
I mean, if you haven't tried yoga, try it. It's like anything. Try it and you might like it. And, don't just do it once. Try it a couple times. Try it and see, because, if you try something once, it's just kind of like,
Yeah.
But the more you really find it, you'll find that there's a greater connection, and brings about the community and all that together, and coming together is really a beautiful thing in the yoga practice. So.
Yes, it is, when it all flows.
And it all flows, yes.
Well, thank you. One last thing, how would someone find out more about yoga in the Ventura community?
They can Google it. They can go to our website, www.jirhythm.com, and everything's there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for being in the studio with us today.
Thank you, Petrina.